Thank you very much, Mr. President. And let me thank my colleague, Senator Warren, for those very eloquent remarks. She and the senators she traveled with have taught us a lot, and we've heard her comments, and she's right. Our values in the United States of America are accepting and open to refugees who flee violence and persecution, and that's the country we are. So I thank you very much for your remarks, and as I've said, we all have learned very much from you and that trip that you took and what you've shared with us. Before I begin my remarks today, and in addition to the things that I've just said, I wanted first to pause for just a moment and say a few words about the Paris attacks last Friday, Mr. President. Mr. President, the people of New Mexico and the people the world over are grieving for those who were killed and injured in the horrific attacks that have just been talked about by Senator Warren and others that have come to the floor today. Earlier today, we had a moment of silence to recognize them, and I just want to say that our thoughts are with the French people, and we are united in our resolve to fight the murderous thugs of terrorism who thrive on hate, intolerance, and fear. I met today with the French ambassador to give him New Mexicans' heartfelt condolences. All of us on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee today and the Senate leadership met with the French ambassador to say to him, we stand together with you against these murderous thugs. Now, Mr. President, I would just ask consent that my remarks I'm going to give now be at another place in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. President, today, because we were on this motion of disapproval, we're discussing the issue of climate change and global warming. It is one of our greatest challenges, and we have a choice. We can deny the reality, we can ignore the danger to our planet, to our economy, and to our security. That's one choice. Or we can move forward. We can work together. We can find common ground. With a diversified energy portfolio that includes clean energy, with an energy policy that makes sense, that creates jobs, that protects the environment, and that will keep our nation strong. That is the choice we should make. That is the choice we must make. And once again, that is the choice we are failing to make. This year is almost over. It will likely be the warmest year on record. And the current record holder, last year, 2014. The impact is clear and people are seeing it all over the world. With rising sea levels and increased droughts, the Southwest is at the eye of the storm. In New Mexico, temperatures are rising 50% faster than the global average. Not just this year or last year, but for decades. This has strained my state with terrible droughts and wildfires. And when the rain does come, it often brings floods as well. In 2011, we had the largest fire in our state's history, the Los Conchas fire. Then in 2012, just a year later, we had an even larger wildfire. The Whitewater Baldy fire burned 259,000 acres. We've seen massive droughts. Our crops and natural resources are at risk. Through all of this, Congress has failed to act. There have been many attempts in the past, and we've had many bipartisan bills introduced in the Senate. The McCain-Lieberman cap-and-trade proposal, the Bingham-Inspector cap-and-trade, the Cantwell-Collins cap and dividend proposal, the Lieberman-Warner bill, the Kerry-Graham bill, and others. In the House of Representatives, I had my own bipartisan bill with Representative Tom Udall. And in 2005, over half the Senate voted on a resolution affirming the need to implement mandatory reductions of greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. But each and every time, Congress failed to make it to the finish line. failed to pass comprehensive legislation in both houses to curb our greenhouse gas emissions. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. Time is growing short, and we are going from bad to worse. So the President and the EPA have used their authority under the Clean Air Act to implement restrictions and to control the pollution. They have done what needs to be done, and with the support of many of us here in Congress, and we know the support of the American people. The proposals are reasonable, they are critical, and they will make a difference to restrict emissions from new and existing power plants. Some in the Senate have argued these proposals do too much, and others argue they don't do enough. But instead of rolling up our sleeves and developing a comprehensive energy and climate strategy of our own, we are here today voting on a Republican resolution of disapproval of the Clean Power Plan rules. What a waste of time. The American people's time, the time we have left to seriously address this very important problem. Mr. President, I started this speech talking about choices, and again, we are making the wrong one. We are wasting time when we should be working together and developing proposals that would address global warming and help push forward clean energy jobs. There are now more solar jobs in the United States than coal jobs. There are currently more than 98 solar companies in New Mexico, employing 1,600 people. Renewable energy jobs and solutions are in abundance in New Mexico, and this is true for many other states. A renewable electricity standards, which I have long fought for, would create 300,000 jobs. Most of these jobs are high-paying, are local, and cannot be shipped overseas. Congress could be using this time moving forward. Our country can lead the world in a clean energy economy. We have the technology, we have the resources, we need the commitment. Instead, the Republican leadership in Congress is doubling down, trying to overturn the president and derailing the progress we are making. They do so knowing they will fail, knowing that the president will veto, and knowing the votes aren't there to override the veto. This is, once again, a lot of sound, a lot of fury, and a lot of wasted time. It makes a false claim that support for climate action does not exist in the United States, and it does so ahead of the Paris Climate Conference, where 153 countries, my understanding at this point, are going to gather and sign on to positive climate proposals. Mr. President, action on climate change is under attack here in the U.S. Senate. That is true, make no mistake about it. But also make no mistake, all of these attacks will fail. I have led the charge in our Appropriations Committee and the subcommittee, I'm the ranking member, to fight against dangerous environmental riders. I will continue to fight them, and they will fail. My colleagues and I are here today in opposition of this resolution of disapproval. And we also are here to ask that we move on, to ask that we work together and face the very real threat of climate change. We will go to Paris next month, and we will get a solid, strong agreement from the international community. The United States will continue to lead on this issue, even if our Republican colleagues continue to fight it each step of the way.